drives on. Roberto to his right, Suarez to his left. Comes across to Suarez! First blood, Barcelona! Lionel Messi on the spot. The eyes of the world on Lionel Messi! Who doesn't fail? Messi does it again!
What's up, soccer fans? Welcome to the Soccer Brothers Podcast. I'm your host, Sahil Qatar, and I am finally joined by my brother, Nihal Qatar, for the first time in a while. How you doing, Nihal?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm happy to be back on the podcast. I had a great time working with Crew SC. Thank you to Carlos and everyone there. It was an incredible experience, but I'm happy to be back where I belong on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I missed a lot that happened in the soccer world. But how are you doing, man? What's going on? What's going on with you?
Well, I've been doing pretty well. I just finished my second to last semester of high school. Glad that college applications are all done.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to just dedicate my whole life to soccer now.
Okay, but like what else? How about Star Wars? You know, we're big Star Wars fans. What'd you think of The Last Jedi? No spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Honestly, I liked it going out of the theater, and then you've just been ranting about it. So I've started to, my opinion's been tainted now.
No, it's a good movie. It's just not what I thought they could have done more. I just felt like nothing really happened in the movie, you know?
I disagree. And it's hard to say that until you see the 9th movie.
That's true. No, there's a lot that Episode 9 can do to redeem this movie, I think. But I'm not one of those people who's like, if you like this movie, you're not a real Star Wars fan. I think, if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Like, I'm not like a huge fanboy in that I'm not, I was disappointed, but people are going kind of crazy with it in terms of not liking it. For a while, I don't know if this is still true, but for a while it had a lower audience score than The Phantom Menace on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's just comparing them to the prequels is just ridiculous. It's on a different level.
Well, I don't want to alienate any of our audience.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The prequels. The prequels are an important part of my childhood, and I'll always cherish them. But yeah, you make a good point. It's definitely a better movie than Phantom Menace.
Now, who in the Star Wars universe would you want on your soccer team?
Would I want on my soccer team?
On Roma right now.
Well, we do need a midfielder, kind of a facilitator.
Okay.
So maybe R2-D2.
R2-D2? What?
Because he's a facilitator. He's not the star of the show, but he helps out.
Okay. See, Everton's defense has been pretty bad this year. They've been okay, but in the last couple of weeks with Sam Allardyce, but they've been pretty bad this year. So I think I would take Chewbacca in the center of defense. I feel like he'd be a decent center back.
Maybe what about Jabba the Hutt?
No, he couldn't move.
Yeah, but you take.
If you stick him in front of goal.
Oh, yeah, that could work.
Yeah,
that could work.
But anyone who could use the force could just guide the ball into the net.
That's true. But obviously that'd be outlawed.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because there is sports in the Star Wars universe, aren't there?
Yeah, in Episode 2 they go into that.
Oh, like pod racing.
Oh yeah, there's pod racing. In Episode 2 at the beginning when they're on Coruscant and they go into the bar or whatever to find the bounty hunter who tries to assassinate Padme. I'm going way deep into this. There's they're watching football and horse racing, and there's horse racing in an episode.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've adjusted, everything to current rules.
Yeah, you can't use the force in sports.
Right.
Ridiculous.
You can't use a fan in sports. It's the same thing. So no, that's what I'm saying. Yes, certain things have been outlawed from certain sports.
What would you use a fan for?
To blow it into the net, just as the force is used.
That's not how the force works.
Was that a Han Solo quote?
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we get into the soccer, this is a podcast that revolves around sports, and we wouldn't truly be a sports podcast if we didn't talk about Lonzo Ball. So how do you feel about Lonzo Ball?
Lonzo Ball. I like Lonzo. I don't like LeVar, but I like Lonzo. I think he's a good player. I've been following him since high school, so I like him. But why are we talking about Lonzo Ball?
Because I don't know, it's just satirical about the media talking about Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I'm sure maybe we'll get him on the podcast someday. He'll be a topic that comes up.
We'll get LeVar on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'd be down. Okay, so what better way to start off Nihal's return to the podcast than El Clásico? Zinedine Zidane's men came into this game knowing they were 11 points down with Barcelona, albeit with a game in hand, but still worrisome. Still a lot of concerns around the Bernabeu, and it didn't help tonight as they lost 3-0 against Barcelona. 3 goals. We saw Messi score his 25th Clásico goal and absolutely dominate, whether he was on the front end of things or playing in good balls. He was absolutely a force to be reckoned with, but overall, this Barcelona team just looked to be dominating, particularly in the second half. What stood out to you that made Barcelona take this game from Real Madrid in the second half?
Well, I think Real Madrid actually dominated in the first half. I thought, Barcelona had maybe a couple of chances, but Benzema came close. He hit it off the post in the first half. Ronaldo had, not really a sitter, but a shot he could have, if he whiffed it, but he could have got a shot on target there. And I think in the first half, Real Madrid was using their width really well. So they were using Marcelo and exploiting that right side of Barcelona's defense with Sergio Roberto. And, they would sort of overload that left side with Ronaldo drifting left and Marcelo over there. And then they also had maybe a midfielder as well. Toni Kroos was on the left, I believe. So I think they did a really good job of using the width in the first half. In the second half, I think Barcelona figured out that Kovacic was man-marking Messi. And you saw it on the first goal that Barcelona scored, where Kovacic was man-marking Messi. I believe Suarez who picks up the ball. Who's running downfield?
Rakitic.
Okay, yeah, Rakitic. Sorry, Rakitic was running downfield, and Messi sort of trails off his run to give Rakitic space, and instead of Kovacic stepping to Rakitic, he doesn't really know what to do in that situation, and Messi is able to pull him away from the ball, opening up a lot of space to create that first goal. And I think
that led to the Sergio Roberto cross,
right,
which Suarez tapped in.
I think Barcelona was able to exploit Real Madrid's tactics in that way, and then I think overall, I said they were exploiting the width in the first half. I think they could have maybe brought on some of their attacking players earlier, like Isco, Asensio, Bale, one of those guys, and really take it to Barcelona in a way that they didn't. But Barcelona, credit to them, they played really well, I thought. Rakitic is incredible. I think he's for some reason, an underrated midfielder, even though he starts for Barcelona. I mean, Paulinho, his work rate's incredible. He was getting in dangerous positions. He was pressuring the ball really well. And then Messi's Messi. And, he was able to pull all the strings despite, Suarez being hurt. He was able to feed him some nice balls. And then, the MVP for me is Sergio Busquets. On that first goal, he wins the ball back, and he, on multiple, I don't know if he won the ball back on the first goal, but he's the one who springs that attack on the first goal. And the second goal, the one leading up to the penalty, he wins the ball back. And he is such a good distributor from defensive midfield, and he's just so smart with his passes. I love watching him play. And, we were kind of sort of getting into it a little bit. I mean, not really getting into it, but, I'm a huge fan of Sergio Busquets. Sahil, not so much.
Well, no, okay, it was just because, it seemed like you were giving the primary credit of the first goal to Sergio Busquets.
I'm not giving the primary. I'm just saying it's
really
important.
Rakitic's run.
It's important to acknowledge how it starts. The Rakitic doesn't have his run without Busquets.
Okay. And in the second goal, Messi's really good pass. Yeah, that was started by a Busquets tackle, I believe.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Which is fine. I just, I don't know. I think that a lot of midfielders would feel comfortable playing underneath, Messi and Suarez.
I mean, but he's not playing underneath them. He's playing much deeper.
Well, right, yeah. Well, but Messi comes back to the ball and starts attacks.
But Busquets splits the defense a lot. He never gets stressed on the ball. He's really good on the ball, right? And he's able to just get the ball to where it needs to be.
Yeah. His composure.
He's one of the best defensive midfielders in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's what I want Morgan Schneiderlin to be for Everton. It's like the same type of player, right? But Busquets is on another level.
Absolutely. No. Fantastic player. I just thought it was funny that I don't know. It seems like that was the focal point of the goals for you, which is fine. Yeah, and we didn't talk about this the
third goal.
Actually, it was the second goal. We did talk about the third goal. The second goal was a penalty kick, which Messi played that ball to Suarez. Actually, we did talk about that.
Yeah, we did.
who Messi played a ball to Suarez, hits Navas, ball comes back out. Messi finds Suarez again, who forces a save out of Carvajal. And you were commenting how the commentator said this is a great save.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in India. I don't know if it's the same commentators that other people had. We didn't have Phil Shane and Ray Hudson because we're in India, so we were watching it. I think it was the same commentator as Sky Sports, potentially. I'm not sure. I mean, this is not really important, but they're like, oh, what a save by Carvajal, but the ball ends up going in the net anyway. So I don't know. That was just irritating to me.
Yeah, I mean, and it didn't. I mean, they ended up,
They ended up converting anyway.
Right,
so.
Exactly. Actually, you saw like a resurgence after the 75th minute or 78th minute when Bale kind of came on. Even though Real Madrid had 10 men, they were getting a lot of chances.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I felt like Zidane should have made those switches earlier, and put a lot more pressure on Barcelona to play out of the back rather than just bringing the counter.
Because when you know that either team at this point has no true wide players, you can really win that battle on the outside.
Exactly. And as well as Roberto has been playing for the last year and a half, he's still not really a right back, in my opinion. And he is exploitable. So I think they really could have brought on, or even started with, a wide player. I wonder when the last time we had a Clásico where both teams tried out a 4-4-2. Like that was. Oh no, yeah. That was really interesting.
I was thinking about him because in the past, Ronaldo plays more of an outside role, rather than a central role. And you have Neymar and
exactly.
More wide players just in general. So it was strange, but it ended up being entertaining nonetheless. So right now, Real Madrid basically. They can't win the league.
No,
not possible.
No, it's not possible. I think Barcelona is obviously going to win the league unless like Valencia somehow pulls it off. But they're still ahead quite a bit on Valencia.
Yeah, so, like 8 points, something like that.
Yeah, it looks like Barcelona's going to run away with the league. It's been a disappointing year for Real Madrid. They didn't win their group in the Champions League. They're sort of out of the league race. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Zinedine Zidane. Do they keep him because he's been so successful early in his career? Or, we know if past is precedent, they're willing to fire their manager after a brief bad spell or even 1 year. They expect a trophy every year. And I don't know how the Copa del Rey is going, so I don't know if that really qualifies. Yeah, but, it's... And Real Madrid could certainly still win the Champions League.
So we know that it really doesn't matter what's going on with Real Madrid. They're a threat to the Champions League. Last year, Zinedine Zidane came in very, very tough circumstances, very urgent. He had to come in and do something, and he won the league and the Champions League. Yeah. But, after exceeding expectations before doesn't really mean anything now. However, I do think...
especially at Real Madrid.
Right. However, I do think that... it's important to know that Zinedine Zidane didn't have a Galactico or a good transfer. So,
but how much is that on him though? I heard he didn't want to bring someone in like that. He wanted to use the players he had, like Asensio, and bring them through because Real Madrid has a lot of attacking talent. But they only used Ronaldo and Benzema in this match. Where was Isco? Where was the problem is they have so many good players. It's hard to get them all on the field. And I think what they were trying to do is have to congest the midfield in order to stop Messi doing his work from the center of the park. But they weren't able to do that.
Yeah. I would say that some of it. I think now, though, in these dire circumstances, if you give them a chance to try to bring in a difference maker, but you're right, I don't even know where you would start. Like, what do they need right now?
Who do they bring in? I mean, you think maybe Eden Hazard, maybe, but then who sits?
I think there's rumors right now of Bale to Manchester United, as there always is. Yeah. And I think just having a more consistent player who will play week in and week out, because Hazard. His durability for Chelsea has been really, really good. He's able to play midweek on the weekend, and which is just a contrast to Bale, who you never know if he can make these games. Right,
and Karim Benzema is a great player, but Real Madrid, I think they really need a top tier striker. And I guess whether Benzema is up for debate, but I don't think he is. And, someone like Aubameyang maybe would be better. And there are rumors that he actually signed a new deal with Dortmund. But he obviously wants to go to Real Madrid. He made that promise to his dying grandfather that he would play for Real Madrid one day. So it seems inevitable that will happen at some point. But, if Benzema is not performing, they don't have anyone to come in and pick up the pieces. Like, they play Ronaldo up front, but there's no one else there. They sold Morata in the summer. Chicharito, it's been 2 years since he was there. So there's no backup striker. There's no one to push Karim Benzema. And Benzema is not he's not as good as Luis Suarez, where you don't need another striker.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. This just came into my mind just now. I don't know if I don't think I've seen any rumors about this, but I think Mauro Icardi could be an interesting shout. I think he could fit nicely.
I don't know how he's doing this year.
Oh, he's doing well.
So yeah, there are strikers out there. The thing is Icardi that next level? And he could be one day. Is he that now?
That's subject to debate. Yeah.
Same with Dybala. That's another guy.
Oh, I think Dybala's up there.
I think so too. And he's someone who we'll talk about a little bit later, but who hasn't been playing recently for Juventus. So
that's true.
Maybe that's a possibility.
All right. Yeah. So. In general, if you're Florentino Perez right now, what are your thoughts on Zidane? What is your take on him?
Well, if I'm him, I probably would fire him because that's what he's done in the past. But if I'm in charge of Real Madrid, I think you got to keep him. Yes, the league might be out of reach, but you still have the Champions League, you still have the Copa del Rey, and. Give Zidane this January, next summer, to bring in some new players and to prove himself once again. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if even if they get a draw in their next match, if he's gone. I think Zidane's going to have to be perfect for the next couple of months in order to keep his job.
All right. Moving on to another huge game in Europe that happened on Saturday. We've got Roma versus Juventus at Allianz Stadium. Going into this game, Roma was down 3 points to Juventus with a game in hand, and they still have a game in hand since they both played. Juventus ended up pulling it out 1-0. You saw from the beginning of this game, early on, and Mehdi Benatia, former Roma player, got a goal off a corner in the 19th minute. From then on, you saw Allegri kind of pack it in, play defensively, as his kind of lineup suggested going in, not playing Douglas Costa or Dybala. Stuck with it defensively, and Roma could not break them down.
Yeah, and something Juventus does really well is using Mario Mandzukic on that left side and sort of hitting diagonal balls to him, exploiting his height advantage over the fullback usually, and being able to play those balls into Higuain or someone in the center. And, they did that a lot in the first half up until they scored that goal, and they did it in the second half too. And it's a great way for them to relieve pressure because Florenzi is not going to win a header against Mario Mandzukic. It's just not going to happen. But I thought Roma really came alive in the last 20 minutes where they should have come alive a lot earlier. And
I think the reason for that is pretty clear. Lorenzo Pellegrini in the center caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, and Strootman was not able to do anything. Nainggolan wasn't able to get on the ball much until later in the match. And something I noticed, which I thought, I haven't watched Juventus this year except for this game, so I don't know if this is the norm, but Allegri had Pjanic playing the number 6 role, playing the deepest, and he had Khedira and Matuidi just pressing whoever was on the ball. Nainggolan on the right, Strootman on the left. So they never had space to work. Khedira was always on Strootman, Matuidi was always on Nainggolan. And then Pjanic, would be able to get the ball deep and relieve some pressure. It was like kind of how Pirlo used to play back in the day for Juventus, where he was the deepest lying midfielder. So I thought that was really interesting. But once what's his name, Pellegrini came in, I think they were able to exploit that space a little bit more. And also, I don't think that Roma utilized the wings well at all. And Perotti wasn't able to do much against Barzagli, El Shaarawy in the first half had a couple of chances down that right wing. He actually did okay. But really, I thought they could have exploited that left side. Barzagli is a great defender, but he doesn't have a lot of pace. If you have him exposed, I think they could have exploited that a little bit more. Cuadrado did a good job of tracking back sometimes, but he's an attack-minded player. He's not always going to be doing that. So I thought they could have exploited that a little bit more. At the end of the day, though, Roma should have come away with a point in this match. Schick had a one-on-one opportunity at the end of the match where he should have scored. El Shaarawy probably should have scored in the first half. I think Florenzi hit the post. That being said, Juventus also hit the post a couple of times. They had other good opportunities. But this you feel now that Roma is pretty much out of the title race. If they do win their game in hand, they are 4 points behind Napoli, and but what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to win all of those head-to-head matches in the second half of the season, in those second fixtures, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for them, and they got to get a little bit more going on the attack, and they have to bring someone in. Whether it's I like Under, I like Perotti, I like El Shaarawy. They need to bring in someone else. They're really missing that presence of someone like a Mohamed Salah, which I know he's a great player, but they just need that little extra spark in attack. Maybe you're right. They do need a playmaker from midfield. Maybe that's what they.
I think as this season's gone on, Eusebio Di Francesco I think exceeded everyone's expectations. Got off to a great start. We won a Champions League group. I'm a Roma fan, by the way, so we won a Champions League group. But what you will see, and you can look at the movement maps and everything else you want, but the majority of our attack was caused by Kolarov and Perotti down that left-hand side.
Yeah.
All of it, almost. And now that that's been figured out, you saw them packing it down that right side. You saw Cuadrado playing more help than usual. And we just have nothing. Nainggolan was a dominant player last year in that number 10 role, but that's not what he's playing right now. Mm-hmm. He's playing just, above De Rossi, like parallel to Strootman. And neither of them are able to do anything because they're not naturally fit for that role. So I think now you're in a position where you need to change the formation.
What happens is you have Dzeko dropping deeper and deeper and vacating that space where he should be occupying, where he should be, rushing into the box. And if you push Nainggolan up a little bit, or, you play him underneath Dzeko, Dzeko can do what he does best. I mean, he always has dropped back, but now if he does drop back, Nainggolan can make that run, or someone else can make that run into the box along with the wingers. You know what I mean? Like that's something I noticed last night. He was leaving a lot of space when he was dropping deep. But yeah, playing Nainggolan, maybe they do switch to they have an attacking midfielder instead of a holding midfielder. I don't know if that's something that Di Francesco will actually do. You understand it more than I do, I guess.
I think it's possible, but he does seem to like this exact 4-3-3 defensive midfielder formation.
And De Rossi was really good last
night. De Rossi was good, but he's often a liability.
He is, yeah. And he got a yellow card in the first 20 minutes.
I've seen this idea presented by a couple other Roma fans. Strootman is not the same player that he was before his 2 injuries. It's very evident. He doesn't move in the same way. He doesn't have the same confidence on the ball. And so I think if you move him back a little bit, he'll thrive more in a deeper position, like he plays for Holland or the Netherlands. And I think that could prove more effective for him.
Yeah, play Pellegrini then?
Yeah, play Pellegrini 9 goal and above him and bench De Rossi, even though he was good in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and Roma have been fantastic defensively, so it's hard, does taking De Rossi out of there, does that sacrifice any, defensive stability? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think Fazio has been great for Roma, and Manolas is Manolas. He's just a top-tier defender, in my opinion. So, I think they'll be fine back there, but they need something. They need someone to come in January. They got Defrel, they got Schick, they got Under, they have Perotti, they have El Shaarawy, but none of those players are game-breaking players. Like, they have an odd moment of brilliance, but none of those players can really break a game open or can really take over a match when it needs to happen. If you shut down Nainggolan in the midfield, if you congest that midfield, it's hard for him to do anything. So what was great about Roma's attack last year, even though they were lacking in defense, was it was pick your poison. Do you lock down the wings and make sure Salah doesn't do his work, or do you congest the midfield and make sure Nainggolan doesn't do what he does? And like I said, Perotti and El Shaarawy, they're good players, but they're not Scudetto winning players, in my opinion. They're not going to...
That's fair.
They're not going to push
that's
you
fair.
over that edge.
I think, yeah. I mean,
El Shaarawy maybe. I think he's the one who's a sort of wild card. On his day, he's fantastic.
Less consistent than Perotti, though. Who's always going to try to create something, but sometimes, fails to do so with his end product. Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, this is a really big win for Juventus. They get closer to Napoli. They're only 1 point off now. I think it's going to turn into a 2-team race as Inter and Roma fall off a little bit. And they'll compete for those last 2 Champions League spots. But, this Juventus on paper isn't, as strong as some Juventuses we've seen in the past. A little more aging, a little bit less, overall star power.
But they're so deep.
That's true.
The players that came on for Juventus last night were Marchisio. Who else came on? I don't even remember. But,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But on the bench, they have Marchisio, they have Rugani, they have Dybala. They just have some really, really good... Bernardeschi, he came on.
Bernardeschi, like Snyder still.
Yeah, so they are so deep, and that's what they can do. They can outlast you, especially in Serie A, where there's all these teams: Napoli, Juve, Roma, Inter. They're all good teams, but they're not exceptionally deep aside from Juventus. Maybe Napoli is in their midfield. They have a lot of players there.
Yeah,
but they're sort of able to outlast you, and they're
but Napoli also is just those players have excellent stamina. I mean, Sarri hardly rotates, and they still get the job done.
Yeah, but that's you might see that you might see that give towards the end of the season, especially with midweek fixtures. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe Inter and Roma can climb back into contention. They are only 7 points behind with a game in hand, so it's possible. But they have to beat Juve in the spring. They have to beat Napoli, and they have to beat Inter.
That's essentially true. Yeah.
So, and they can't drop stupid points like they usually do.
Right. And they
haven't done this year really.
It boils down to in the last month we've played a couple poor teams and we haven't scored more than a goal in any game. So we need a difference maker on the attack.
Right. And the thing is, Roma are on pace for 82 points or something. And that might be 4th place. It's top heavy this year.
That's true.
Serie A.
That's true. All right. That's all we'll do with that. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk with you about. I don't even want to say it, but the USMNT failing to qualify for the 2018 World Cup.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend a bunch of time. I don't want to beat a dead horse. But do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I think this. The U.S. soccer presidential election coming up in February, I think it's extremely important. I think it's something that we as a podcast will dive into more this year. But overall, just a total failure by U.S. soccer. We failed to qualify for U17 World Cup, to Olympics, some other tournaments, the men's teams, and it's just been bad for the last 5 or 6 years. And there's just been a hesitancy to play our young players. Why? Why not play people like Weston McKennie or Jonathan Gonzalez? I don't give a shit if they're young. If they're good enough, they should be there. Pulisic already proved that if you're good enough, you should play.
We even saw that with Pulisic during the Copa America.
Exactly. There's just this hesitancy to play these young players, and people are like, oh, don't put pressure on them. You think there's more pressure playing at Trinidad than there is playing at Schalke or in
Bayern?
Yeah, exactly. So, play them. And, I have never been more pro-rel than I am now. I have never been more critical of MLS for multiple reasons. For one, obviously, the whole Columbus Crew, what they have done, which we'll go into probably in a different podcast. What they have done with that situation is not great. And just the complacency at MLS and U.S. soccer, thinking that everything is fine despite this failure. And, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a good thing at all. I don't think it's a good thing at all that we didn't qualify for the World Cup. A lot of people say, oh, maybe we needed this for a wake-up call. No, I don't think that's true, because you lose so many kids with not having the World Cup on. So many. I mean, how did we get into soccer? Watching the 2010 World Cup here in India. That's how we got into this sport. You know, it's huge. And that could still happen, but it's not the same as rooting and wanting to play for the U.S. national team. That being said, I'm in terms of the podcast, I'm really excited to cover the World Cup. I think, you know, without having the U.S. there, we can do some really interesting things and focus more on the tournament as a whole.
Right.
And something that we want to do leading up to the World Cup is, you know, have an episode for each World Cup in the history of World Cups. Who knows how that'll work out, because there's a lot there. But, you know, I'm really excited for the World Cup. I was devastated after we didn't qualify. And, you know, it seemed like everyone was taking it for granted that we'd qualify, even down to that last game. But
yeah, I mean, you saw Bruce Arena's comments. I mean,
yeah.
He essentially already said they qualified.
Right. I mean, losing to Trinidad at home losing to Trinidad, it was on the road, but losing to them is terrible. They had 6 points. They had 6 points in the group, and I guess you're opening up an old wound here, so I don't want to go on a huge rant, but it's just...
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're not even going to talk about this qualifying cycle anymore. I think that's... Like, the specifics of it are just irrelevant at this point. I mean, we failed.
What I will say, you know, is it's going to hurt watching the World Cup. It's going to hurt leading up to the World Cup. But we have so many exciting prospects out there, U.S. men's national team prospects, that I think, you know, we have a lot to look forward to. And, you know, the World Cup, it was a tough cycle for a lot of teams that usually make it. I mean,
Chile.
Yeah, Chile, I don't know if they usually make it, but they're so good. They've been so good recently.
Right. They won the last Copa America.
The last two.
That's true.
You know, Chile, Netherlands, Italy.
Ghana.
Yeah, even like teams like Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, who we've seen in the last few years, didn't make it. So I think world soccer is more competitive than it's ever been, but it's still unacceptable that we didn't qualify for the World Cup. And, you know, it's just a lot went wrong in this cycle. And, you know, Sunil Gulati is, you know, he's a nice guy. I've had the opportunity to speak to him. But he obviously isn't the right person for the job going forward. And I'm glad that he was able to acknowledge that and sort of step down.
Yeah. Because
we thought he might not. But yeah, we need change. So, like, do your research on the U.S. soccer presidential candidates. Keep on asking for change, because that's how we make this happen. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's funny because you and I were watching. You know, before we had the podcast, we had a YouTube channel where we talked about soccer, and you and I were watching, and it was directly after the 2014 World Cup. And, you know, I mentioned all these players. I mentioned Christian Pulisic, or as I call him, Pulisic. But I also mentioned, like, Daniel Cuevas and Rubio Rubin and, like, all these players. Luis Gil. Like, players who aren't relevant anymore. So, and what did I say? I think we can try to make it to the semifinals or something.
2018, yeah.
I mean, ridiculous. And
you're the perfect example of what went wrong.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know you're joking, but it's that mentality, right? Like, you know, we need to see the development of our players through. MLS, we need to give our young players minutes. You know, Jose Villarreal, watching him play, he was one of my favorite players to watch. And he's so talented, he's still rotting on the bench in LA. Like, he still hasn't been given the opportunity. Tommy Thompson, another incredibly talented player, still doesn't get playing time in MLS. And something needs to change there, because our young players aren't getting on the field in MLS. Christian Pulisic said it in his Players Tribune article.
Yeah. I think McKennie said something about that too.
Yeah, I mean,
recently.
You know, if Schalke and Dortmund and Levante and Monterrey and all these teams are willing to play young players and young Americans, why aren't MLS teams willing to do too? Maybe FC Dallas is the only one, like with Kellen Acosta, that I've seen. You know, Jordan Morris you have. Outside of that, who's there? They don't play teenagers. And it's a shame. That mentality
Tyler
needs to
Adams.
change. Yeah, Tyler Adams. That's a good shout.
But
I mean, there's not too many. I mean, if you go to the Premier League, even though England is not necessarily the greatest team and they don't have many players on the top 4 teams, I mean, on Everton themselves, you have like five English players starting, or like teams like Burnley. All those teams, they have players starting and playing at a high level, and we aren't even willing to give our young Americans a chance at this level. In fact, we're giving young foreigners a chance, which is okay. Like I don't think you should. People are saying we should have cap. I mean, we already do have like international spots and stuff, but I mean that's not the issue. Foreign players. The issue is having a good academy system and giving the players opportunities to play, it just needs to change.
We won't go much further into it. I did want to mention one thing that's kind of interesting that I just thought about. Now, obviously, from probably most aspects, hosting the Gold Cup every year helps us because more revenue. I don't know, more publicity. But obviously, we played way better at home during the cycle than we did on the road.
Yeah.
Except bar Mexico.
Yeah. We actually played well. Oh, you said bar. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think it would benefit the U.S. to not host the Gold Cup every year?
So, I think the CONCACAF Nations League, which will be competitive matches against CONCACAF teams, where you go to Costa Rica, where you go to Mexico, where you go to Panama, I think that'll really help. Because those are competitive matches outside of World Cup qualifying in those hostile environments. The Gold Cup should change. I don't know why it's always here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for money. But, I mean, it doesn't make sense that Mexico doesn't host it or that Canada doesn't host it. Even, Panama. I mean, give those teams opportunities to host it.
Yeah.
And does it matter? I don't think so, because it hasn't mattered in the past in terms of qualifying. It's overall complacency. And obviously that's changed. Hopefully that's changed, and hopefully that will continue to change. But we have a long way to go to rebuild the program, in my opinion.
Yep. I agree. All right, nothing more on that. You saw Pulisic's last goal, right?
Yes.
That game winner. Was that not one of the best American goals we've seen in a while?
It's such a shame that he won't. That's what I'm really upset about. That he won't be able to play in this World Cup because he is a star. How many teenagers are better than him in the world? Dembele.
Probably less than 5.
Dembele and Mbappe, maybe those are the. Is Mbappe a teenager right now? I don't even know.
Yeah, he is.
So maybe those.
He's younger.
Those two. So I mean, outside of that. Is Dembele a teenager? Is he 20 yet?
Dembele's not a teenager.
Okay, so, I mean, whatever. The point is, he's one of the best teenagers in the world. And, I mean, I'm so excited to see how he develops.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, we're going to hopefully see him continue to play at Dortmund. And, I mean, that's exciting enough for me to, watch him score for Dortmund.
Who knows? He could be going to Manchester United.
No, please.
I would hate that.
Yeah.
The only teams I would like to see him go to are Bayern Munich, maybe Juventus, and then Barcelona and Real Madrid. Those are the only teams that I do not want him going to England, essentially.
I don't even know if I want to see him go to. Right now, I think the next few years I want him to just develop at Dortmund.
Maybe. I mean, I think.
I don't know.
Well, Barcelona bought Dembele this summer.
Italian, Juventus, Italian media is just some of the harshest.
I don't think. Okay, maybe not Juventus, but what I'm saying is I would only want him to see him take a step up, not move laterally.
Right. Okay, fair.
And I don't think any team in England you can miss a Champions League. Any of those top 6 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's true. All right. I don't think we have anything else. We will have another episode next week regarding some big club matches, big European club matches, and other than that, do you have anything else to say?
Nothing else. It's good to be back.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on episode 84 of the Soccer Brothers Podcast. Thank you.